Alright, in this video here, we're going to have a look at adding some buttons. So really similar to our to the UI as it has been. I might actually make a little bit more space here for that one. Yeah, that's a bit nicer. So really similar to adding anything else in our UI. I'm going to actually make another little panel under here to make sure I can keep control of it. And I'm going to call it my buttons panel. Again, I'm going to choose an anchor point in the middle purely because I wanted to always use that as its reference whenever it's figuring out how big it should be or where it should be. And I'm going to line up with that other panel that I made before. So I'm going to sit it underneath here. Looks fairly good to me. Now again, I don't want to have this filled in grey. I don't need it to be filled in grey. So I'm just going to turn that image off, but my buttons are going to be able to sit underneath there. So I'm going to right click on this new panel that I made, go to UI and say button. And you can see it's made a little button there for me. Now this here, I want to have two buttons, a previous day and a next day button. Okay, so I'm going to call this one previous day here. And I want it to be over in the left hand side. Now I could click it and drag it and position it that way, but I'm only going to use my anchors because I know they're exactly right. So I'm going to anchor it, bam, over to the left hand side. Now I'm going to do something a little bit different here. I'm actually going to set its minimum and maximum values manually for the anchors, and I'll show you what that does. So first things first, I'm going to set this Y to 0, as in it can go all the way down to the very bottom anchor, and I set the maximum to 1, so it can go as high as the panel allows. And its X value minimum, I'm going to leave it at 0. And if I actually, you can see if I click and drag, I can actually see where this is going along to. I want this to go 0.45 of the way across. See that I've set these little 4 anchor points up now. If I actually change all these here to 0, it means it's going to make that button fit that space as best as it can, based on the anchor points. So I'm going to change this to say previous day. Make sure I can expand it as big as I need. And I'm going to click best fit in my text attribute there. Previous day. You see it's put some nice text in there for me. Now, you see it's just got like a simple text element underneath it. Again, I go back to the button. The button has a whole bunch of stuff I can do, so I can change its color here. I might actually go change this text to white now to kind of match it. I might bold it up a little bit. Let's make this font a little bit bigger. Oh, I'll turn off best fit. Let's go like that for now. So here I've got my previous day button. Now you see I've got all this other stuff like normal color, highlighted color, selected color. It means I can actually, that's all the colors it changes to as you click it. And you see I've got things like color multiply and fade duration, as in how quickly it fades between all of those things. I'll go into all that in a bit more detail soon. But for now, I've got my previous day button. I'm going to duplicate it and call it next day here because I want my next day button sitting there. I'm going to make its text say next day. Now it's going over my other button. All I'm going to do is simply change my anchor points. So I actually want the maximum for my X to be at 1, so all the way at the end. And I want it to start at 0.55. Everything else will stay the same. You see I put it there. Now the advantage of doing this is if I start to resize my window, it actually makes it fit that as best as it can, regardless. I might actually reduce the distance between them. You can see I've left some bit of space. Looks a bit underutilized, so I'm going to change my anchor and then zero it out. What am I doing? Bit of maths. So let's go 0.52. There we go, they're looking a bit closer. Maybe I'll go 0.51. Let's just put 1 unit between them. Here, zero it out. There we go. Looks pretty good, looks pretty close to what I want. I've been able to set up a user interface there with all the aspects that I needed to fit exactly as I want them, with relative ease, I guess you would say. So I'm going to actually, I might actually change a couple of these elements just so I can do some other examples later on. So I'm going to actually change this to say low. That says low text. I'm going to make sure it is only half the size. So let's do my little anchor trick that I've done. Anchor to the bottom. Let's make its max. So I'm actually going to go low, put that there, and I might make another one and call it low value here. I'm going to move it next to it, just that way I can go 30 or 21 or whatever it is. You'll see why I'm doing this a little bit later. And now let's do the same thing for the high value. So let's go high. Let's just make it say high. Let's go put it all the way to there. I'm going to duplicate the low value and say high value here. Make sure it lines up with the high temp. 31, sure. All right, looks pretty good. So we're going to work with this from here. We're going to start programming some stuff, starting out with some buttons in the next video.